A certain Mr. Yu was a chivalrous and righteous man. He loved practicing martial arts and was so strong that he could lift a large pot and spin it like a whirlwind. During the Chongzhen period of the Ming dynasty, he traveled to the capital to take the palace examination. Unfortunately, his servant fell ill with an epidemic and was bedridden, causing Mr. Yu great worry. He heard of a fortune teller on the street who was skilled at divination and could predict life and death. Mr. Yu decided to inquire about his servant's fate. When he arrived, the fortune teller, before Mr. Yu could say anything, asked, "Are you here about your servant's illness?" Surprised, Mr. Yu nodded. The fortune teller then said, "Your servant will recover, but you are in danger." Mr. Yu asked the fortune teller to read his fortune. After the divination, the fortune teller exclaimed, "You will die within 3 days." Shocked, Mr. Yu sat in silence. The fortune teller calmly offered, "I have a magic trick that can remove this danger for 10 taels of silver." Mr. Yu, believing that life and death were predetermined, doubted the efficacy of magic and stood up to leave. The fortune teller warned, "Don't regret being stingy with this small sum. Don't regret it." Mr. Yu's friends, worried about him, urged him to pay the money and seek the fortune teller's help, but Mr. Yu refused. 3 days later, Mr. Yu sat in his inn, quietly waiting for what might happen. Nothing happened all day. At night, he closed the doors and windows, lit an oil lamp, and sat in his room with his sword. As the first watch ended with no sign of danger, he was about to go to bed when he heard a rustling at the window. He hurried over and saw a tiny man with a spear squeezing in. As soon as the man was inside, he grew to normal size. Mr. Yu immediately drew his sword and attacked, but the man moved erratically, and Mr. Yu missed. The man shrank again, trying to escape through the window. Mr. Yu struck hard, and the tiny man fell. When Mr. Yu lit a lamp, he found only a cut-up paper man. Afraid to sleep, he stayed alert. After a while, a hideous goblin with a ghostly face came in through the window. As soon as it landed, Mr. Yu rushed forward and chopped it in two, but both halves kept crawling. He continued hacking until it was in pieces. On closer inspection, it was a clay figurine. Mr. Yu moved to sit under the window, keeping an eye on the crack. After some time, he heard a cow-like panting outside, and a monster began pushing the window frame, causing the walls to shake as if they might collapse. Fearing the house would fall, Mr. Yu thought it best to fight outside. He burst through the door and ran out. There, he saw a giant ghost, as tall as the eaves, with a coal-black face and glowing yellow eyes. The ghost, naked from the waist up and barefoot, held a bow with an arrow at its waist. Horrified, Mr. Yu watched as the ghost shot an arrow at him. Mr. Yu deflected it with his sword, and the arrow fell to the ground. As he prepared to strike, the ghost shot another arrow, but Mr. Yu dodged, and it pierced the wall. The ghost, furious, drew its sword and attacked powerfully, but Mr. Yu was agile, avoiding the blows and countering. Eventually, he brought the ghost down. When he lit a lamp, he found it was a wooden statue, human-sized, with a bow and arrow and a hideous face. Blood flowed from the places he had struck. Mr. Yu sat until dawn, realizing that the ghosts were sent by the fortune teller to kill him and prove his powers. The next day, Mr. Yu told his friends, and they all went to the fortune teller's residence. Seeing Mr. Yu, the fortune teller vanished in an instant. Someone suggested using dog blood to reveal him. Mr. Yu prepared as advised and went to find the fortune teller again. When the fortune teller vanished, Mr. Yu quickly poured dog blood on the spot, revealing the fortune teller's true form, covered in dog blood, his eyes flickering, looking like a ghost. Mr. Yu seized him and took him to the authorities, who sentenced the fortune teller to death.